Beneath a sky dusted with stars, where the air hums with the whispers of ancient ice, lies a land so remote, so untouched, that it feels like the edge of the world. Antarctica, the forbidden continent, is a place where time seems to stand still, where towering glaciers guard secrets older than humanity itself. This is no ordinary land. It's a frozen enigma, a vast white canvas painted with the stories of explorers who dared to challenge its icy embrace, of creatures that thrive in its unrelenting cold, and of mysteries that still linger beneath its surface. Tonight, as you settle into the quiet of your evening, let me take you on a journey through the history of this distant realm. We'll wander through its ancient origins, when it was a lush, green paradise, to the harrowing tales of those who risked everything to uncover its truths. This is a story of endurance, discovery, and the haunting beauty of a place that feels like it belongs to another world. Close your eyes, if you'd like, and imagine the soft creak of ice underfoot, the distant howl of wind across a boundless plain. This video is crafted to guide you gently into sleep, wrapping you in the soothing rhythm of history's unfolding tale. Whether you're here to drift off or to lose yourself in the wonders of the past, I'm honored to share this journey with you. Oh, and I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? What time is it there? Drop a comment below to share a little piece of your world with me, and let's connect across the miles. If you enjoy this deep dive into Antarctica's story, consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales that blend history with the calm of bedtime storytelling. Your support means the world to me and helps keep these stories alive. Hello, my name is Sherry, and welcome to my channel. So let's begin. Picture a world so unlike the one we know, a place where the air hums with the warmth of a distant sun, where lush ferns sway in a gentle breeze, and the ground trembles under the weight of creatures long vanished. This was Antarctica, millions of years ago, not a frozen wasteland, but a vibrant, living heart within a greater whole, a supercontinent called Gondwana. As you settle into the quiet of this moment, let's step back into a time when the Earth was young, when Antarctica was not the forbidden continent we imagine today, but a cradle of life, pulsing with possibility. Long before the ice claimed its dominion, Antarctica was nestled among other ancient lands. South America, Africa, Australia, and India, all stitched together in a vast, sprawling tapestry of landmasses. Gondwana was a world of extremes, its landscapes ranging from dense forests to sprawling rivers that carved their way through valleys teeming with life. Fossils uncovered in Antarctica's now barren ranges tell us of a time when dinosaurs roamed here. Great beasts like the Cryolophosaurus, a predator with a crest like a crown, stalked through forests of conifers and cycads. Smaller creatures, like early mammals and amphibians, darted through the undergrowth, their tiny footprints pressed into mud that would one day harden into stone. Can you imagine it? A land where the air was thick with the scent of pine and the chatter of prehistoric life, where the sun dipped low but never brought the bitter cold we now associate with this place. This Antarctica was a land of seasons, but not the endless winter we know today. During the Mesozoic era, some 200 million years ago, the continent sat closer to the equator, basking in a temperate climate. Ferns and ginkgo trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves catching the light of a sun that lingered long during the polar summers. Rivers flowed freely, their waters nourishing ecosystems that rivaled the richness of modern rainforests. Scientists have found evidence of this lost world in the Transantarctic mountains, where layers of rock hold the delicate imprints of leaves and the bones of creatures that thrived in a world without ice. It's humbling to think of it. A place now synonymous with desolation was once a nursery for life, a stage for the drama of evolution. But beneath this vibrant surface, the Earth was restless. The planet's crust, ever shifting, was already beginning to pull Gondwana apart. Tectonic forces, slow and inexorable, were at work, like the hands of a cosmic sculptor reshaping the world. Antarctica, though it didn't yet know it, was destined for a journey that would carry it to the bottom of the globe. The rocks beneath its forests held clues to this future, ancient sediments that would one day be buried under miles of ice, preserving a snapshot of a world that no human would ever witness. Geologists, piecing together this story, have marveled at how these rocks speak of a time when Antarctica was not alone, but part of a greater whole, connected to lands that would one day become continents of their own. As you listen, imagine standing on the edge of one of those ancient rivers, the water glinting in the sunlight, the air alive with the calls of creatures we can only dream of. It's a scene so alien to the Antarctica of today, yet it's the foundation of its story. This was a land that breathed, that lived, that held within it the seeds of everything it would become. But nothing in the Earth's story is permanent. The forces that shaped this paradise were already conspiring to tear it apart, to send Antarctica on a solitary path toward the cold. What would it have been like to walk that land, to feel its warmth underfoot, knowing it was destined to vanish? The thought lingers, heavy with the weight of time. This ancient heart of Antarctica wasn't just a place, it was a moment, a fleeting chapter in the Earth's long tale. As Gondwana began to fracture, the continent's fate was sealed, pulling it slowly, inexorably, toward the southern pole. The forests would fade, the rivers would freeze, and the creatures that once roamed would leave only their bones behind. But those bones, those fossils, they whisper to us now, across millions of years, telling a story of a world that was and a continent that would become something else entirely. What forces could transform such a vibrant land into the icy enigma we know today? The answer lies in the slow dance of the Earth itself, a dance that would carry Antarctica into isolation and into legend. Imagine the Earth as a restless giant, its surface a patchwork of landmasses shifting ever so slowly, like pieces of a puzzle caught in a dream. Millions of years ago, Antarctica was no solitary sentinel at the world's edge. It was bound to its kin, nestled within the embrace of Gondwana, surrounded by lands that would one day become South America, Africa, and Australia. But the Earth is never still. Beneath the vibrant forests and teeming rivers of ancient Antarctica, a quiet force was stirring, one that would set the continent on a solitary journey to the bottom of the world. As you rest tonight, let's wander into this chapter of deep time, where the slow dance of tectonic plates reshaped the planet and cast Antarctica into a frozen exile. Some 180 million years ago, during the Jurassic period, the supercontinent of Gondwana began to fracture. It was a process so gradual that no creature living then would have noticed, yet so profound that it would redraw the map of the Earth. The planet's crust, fractured into vast plates, was driven by currents of molten rock deep within the mantle. These forces pulled at Gondwana like threads unraveling from a tapestry. Antarctica, once at the heart of this supercontinent, found itself caught in a slow, southward drift. Geologists tell us this movement was measured in centimeters per year, but over millions of years, those centimeters stretched into thousands of miles. Picture it, a land once warmed by equatorial suns, home to dinosaurs and lush greenery, inching ever closer to the cold grip of the southern pole. As Antarctica drifted, the world around it changed. The breakup of Gondwana wasn't just a matter of geography. It altered climates, ocean currents, and the very fabric of life. The continent's separation from Australia and South America opened new pathways for the seas. The Drake Passage, that wild stretch of water between Antarctica and South America, began to form around 34 million years ago, allowing the Antarctic circumpolar current to take shape. This current, a relentless ring of water encircling the continent, acted like a moat, isolating Antarctica from warmer ocean flows. The effect was dramatic. Cut off from the warmth of its neighbors, the continent began to cool. The forests that had thrived for eons started to wither, replaced by hardier plants like mosses and lichens, clinging to life in an increasingly hostile world. The rocks of Antarctica hold this story in their layers. In places like the Beardmore Glacier, scientists have found coal deposits, remnants of ancient forests that once blanketed the land. These seams of black, buried beneath miles of ice, are a testament to a time when warmth and life defined the continent. But as Antarctica drifted farther south, crossing the polar circle, the seasons grew more extreme. The long polar summers, where the sun never set, gave way to winters of deepening cold. The dinosaurs that once roamed here could not adapt to the chilling climate. Fossils of creatures like the Lystrosaurus, a sturdy reptile that thrived in Gondwana's warmer days, vanish from the record as the continent grew colder. In their place, only the hardiest forms of life endured, tiny microbes, perhaps, or algae that could survive in the shrinking oases of warmth. This slow transformation wasn't just a geological event. It was a reshaping of Antarctica's soul. The continent, once a vibrant part of a greater whole, became a solitary wanderer, adrift in a world that was forgetting its warmth. The ice began to creep in, at first in patches, then in great sheets that swallowed mountains and valleys. By the Oligocene epoch, around 30 million years ago, Antarctica was well on its way to becoming the frozen realm we know today. Glaciers carved their way across the landscape, grinding rock into dust and reshaping the terrain into a stark, white wilderness. The continent's isolation was complete, locked away by geography and climate, a prisoner of its own journey. As you listen, imagine standing on the edge of a shrinking forest, watching the first snowflakes settle on leaves that will never grow again. The air grows colder, the days shorter, and the land feels heavier, as if it knows the weight of the ice to come. This was no sudden catastrophe, but a slow, inevitable farewell to a world that once was. Antarctica's drift into isolation wasn't just a physical journey. It was a descent into a new identity, one defined by cold, silence, and mystery. What would it mean for a land to lose its warmth, to trade its green heart for a mantle of ice? The answer lies in the stories of those who would one day seek this forbidden continent, drawn by its secrets and haunted by its solitude. As the stars wheel above a restless sea, imagine the creak of wooden ships battling towering waves, their sails taut against winds that carry the bite of an unseen world. The year is 1820, and the Southern Ocean is no longer just a myth, it's a challenge, a siren call to those who dare to chase the shadow of Terra Australis. Antarctica, the forbidden continent, is about to step from the realm of whispers into the flickering light of human discovery. Tonight, as you sink into the calm of this story, let's sail with the first explorers who glimpsed its icy shores, men driven by courage, curiosity, and the weight of dreams that refuse to fade. Theirs is a tale of fleeting moments, of awe and fear, and of a land that seemed to guard its secrets with a will of its own. The early 19th century was a time when the world's edges were still being drawn. The maps of Cook and his predecessors had shrunk the possibilities of Terra Australis, but they hadn't erased it. The Southern Ocean remained a frontier, a place where the line between fact and legend blurred. Sealers and whalers, those rugged souls who plied the seas for profit, were among the first to venture close to Antarctica's shores. These were not men of science or fame, but pragmatists, chasing seals and whales to fuel the growing demands of industry. Their ships, small and weathered, navigated waters thick with icebergs, where the air grew sharp and the horizon gleamed with a strange, pale light. It was in these perilous journeys that Antarctica began to reveal itself, not as a land of riches, but as a realm of stark, unyielding beauty. In January 1820, a Russian expedition led by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev sailed farther south than most dared. Commissioned by Tsar Alexander I, their mission was to explore the southern seas, to test the limits of Cook's claims. On a day when the skies cleared and the sea grew still, they sighted what they described as a looming coast of ice. Was it land or merely a trick of the light? Bellingshausen's journals speak of towering cliffs of ice, of a horizon that seemed to stretch into eternity, but he couldn't be sure if he'd seen the continent itself or just its frozen sentinels. Yet, in that moment, Antarctica's veil was beginning to lift. The Russians had come closer than any before, their eyes catching the first faint outline of a land that had hidden for millennia. Almost simultaneously, a British naval officer, Edward Bransfield, and an American sealer, Nathaniel Palmer, reported their own sightings. Bransfield, surveying the South Shetland Islands in 1820, described a rugged coastline shrouded in mist, its peaks dusted with snow that glowed under the weak polar sun. Palmer, a young captain from Connecticut, ventured south in his sloop, the Hero, and claimed to have seen a land of stupendous grandeur. These accounts, though fragmented, painted a picture of a place unlike any other, a continent of ice, vast and silent, where the sea itself seemed to freeze in reverence. The men who saw it were not prepared for its scale. Antarctica didn't just challenge their maps, it challenged their understanding of the world. These early glimpses were fleeting, often obscured by fog or storm. The Southern Ocean was a merciless gatekeeper, its currents and winds conspiring to keep Antarctica's secrets. Sealers like John Davis, who may have set foot on the continent in 1821, spoke of beaches strewn with pebbles and penguins, of air so cold it burned the lungs. But their reports were often dismissed as the boasts of rough men, unworthy of scholarly attention. The truth was, Antarctica resisted discovery. Its coasts were guarded by pack ice, its interior hidden by blizzards that could swallow a ship whole. To see it was one thing, to understand it was another. Each sighting was like a brushstroke on a canvas that remained stubbornly incomplete. Yet these moments of contact sparked something profound. The men who returned from the South carried stories that spread through ports and taverns, igniting the imaginations of those who heard them. Antarctica was no longer just a theory. It was real, a place of ice and mystery that demanded to be known. The sealers and sailors, though driven by profit, became unwitting pioneers, their rough logs and tailies laying the groundwork for the explorers who would follow. They spoke of a land where the sun hung low, casting long shadows across ice that shimmered like crystal, where the silence was so deep it felt alive. Can you picture it? A lone ship dwarfed by mountains of ice, its crew gazing in awe at a world that feels like another planet. The cold seeps into their bones, yet they cannot turn away from the sight. A land so vast, so alien, it seems to defy the very idea of Earth. This was the Antarctica they found, a continent that didn't welcome visitors but compelled them to return. The early 19th century was merely the beginning, a fleeting glimpse of a land that would call to greater heroes, men who would risk everything to pierce its frozen heart. What kind of courage would it take to step beyond those first sightings, to challenge a continent that seemed to reject humanity itself? As the wind howls across a sea flecked with ice, imagine the flicker of lanterns aboard wooden ships, their hulls groaning under the weight of ambition. The dawn of the 20th century brought a new kind of explorer to Antarctica's shores, not the sealers or whalers of decades past, but men driven by a hunger for glory, for knowledge, and for the chance to conquer a land that seemed to defy conquest. This was the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, a time when the frozen continent became a stage for human courage and folly, where dreams of reaching the unknown clashed with the brutal reality of ice and cold. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let's step into this era of daring, where names like Shackleton, Amundsen, and Scott became synonymous with the struggle to unravel Antarctica's secrets. By the late 19th century, Antarctica was no longer a mere whisper on the edges of maps. The fleeting glimpses of its icy coasts had stirred the imaginations of nations, and the race to claim its mysteries was on. The world was changing. Steamships and telegraphs were shrinking distances, yet Antarctica remained a frontier beyond reach, a place where only the boldest dared to venture. The heroic age, spanning roughly from 1895 to 1917, was defined by expeditions that pushed the limits of human endurance. These were not journeys of leisure but grueling tests of will, where men faced starvation, frostbite, and the ever-present threat of a land that offered no mercy. The prize, to stand where no one had stood before, to plant a flag in the heart of the forbidden continent. The stage was set by men like Karsten Borchgrevink, a Norwegian who led the first confirmed landing on Antarctica in 1895. His small expedition wintered at Cape Adare, enduring months of darkness in a hut battered by blizzards. Borchgrevink's team was a motley crew, not the polished explorers of later years, but their survival proved it could be done. They returned with tales of a land where the wind screamed like a living thing, where penguins waddled in vast colonies, and where the ice seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Their modest success lit a spark, proving Antarctica was not just a place to see but a place to live, if only for a season. Then came the Titans, men whose names would echo through history. Ernest Shackleton, an Irishman with a poet's heart and a sailor's grit, sailed south in 1901 as part of Robert Falcon Scott's Discovery expedition. This British venture aimed to map the continent's interior and conduct scientific studies, but it was as much a quest for national pride. Shackleton and Scott, along with Edward Wilson, trekked toward the interior, hauling sledges across the Ross Ice Shelf, a vast plain of ice that seemed to stretch into infinity. The journey was brutal, scurvy gnawed at their bodies, and the cold was a constant enemy, seeping through their furs and into their bones. They turned back short of the South Pole, but their effort marked a turning point. Antarctica was no longer just a coast. It was a challenge to be met head-on. The Discovery expedition revealed the continent's true nature, a place of extremes that demanded preparation, ingenuity, and sheer stubbornness. Scott, a naval officer with a meticulous mind, clashed with Shackleton's more impulsive spirit, a rivalry that would shape their futures. Meanwhile, other nations joined the race. Germany sent Erich von Drygalski in 1901, his ship Gauss probing the continent's eastern shores, while Sweden's Otto Nordenskjöld faced disaster when his ship was crushed by ice, leaving his team stranded for a year. These early expeditions were a mosaic of triumph and tragedy, each one adding a piece to the puzzle of Antarctica. The continent was no longer a blank space. It was a battlefield where men tested themselves against nature itself. The heroic age was not just about exploration. It was about the human spirit. These men sailed into the unknown with little more than canvas tents, wooden sledges, and a belief in their own resilience. They faced blizzards that could bury a camp in hours, crevasses that swallowed sledges without a trace, and a cold so fierce it could freeze a man's breath in his beard. Yet they pressed on, driven by a mix of ambition, curiosity, and the desire to etch their names into history. The stories they left behind, etched in journals, told in frostbitten whispers, speak of a land that was both enemy and muse, a place that broke men but also made them legends. As you listen, imagine yourself in one of those canvas tents, the wind howling outside, the glow of a lantern casting shadows on the ice. You're miles from home, surrounded by a wilderness that cares nothing for your dreams. The men of the heroic age didn't just explore Antarctica, they wrestled with it, their every step a defiance of its power. But the greatest challenge lay ahead, the race to the South Pole, a contest that would pit two men, two nations, and two visions against each other in a struggle that would define the era. Who would claim the heart of the forbidden continent, and at what cost would they pay for its secrets? The wind moans across a frozen plain, carrying the sting of a cold so fierce it feels like the breath of the earth itself. It's 1911, and Antarctica, that forbidden continent, stands as the ultimate prize in a world hungry for conquest. Two men, two nations, and two visions are locked in a race to reach its heart, the South Pole, a point on the map where all meridians meet, a place no human has ever stood. Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian hardened by years in the Arctic, and Robert Falcon Scott, a British naval officer driven by duty and ambition, are about to write one of the most dramatic chapters in the history of exploration. As you settle into the quiet of this night, let's walk with them across the ice, through a story of triumph, tragedy, and the unrelenting pull of a land that tests the soul. The South Pole was more than a destination. It was a symbol, the last great unclaimed frontier in a world where empires were racing to carve up the globe. For Amundsen, a man with ice in his veins and a singular focus, the pole was a challenge to be met with precision and pragmatism. For Scott, it was a matter of honor, a chance to prove Britain's mettle in an age of fading imperial glory. Neither man knew the other was aiming for the same goal until late in their preparations, but when the truth emerged, the stage was set for a contest that would grip the world's imagination. Antarctica, with its vast ice shelves and treacherous glaciers, would be their arena, and the stakes could not be higher. Amundsen set sail in 1910 aboard the Fram, a ship built for polar seas. His plan was meticulous. He relied on sled dogs, those tireless creatures bred for the Arctic, to pull his supplies across the ice. His team was small, disciplined, and trained to move quickly. Amundsen chose the Bay of Whales as his base, a point on the Ross Ice Shelf closer to the pole than Scott's starting line. It was a calculated risk. The ice shelf could crack and drift, but Amundsen gambled on its stability. His men built depots along the route, stockpiling food and fuel with military precision. Every detail, from the dogs' harnesses to the men's skis, was designed for speed and survival. Amundsen knew the cold, knew its cruelty, and he respected it. His journals speak of a quiet confidence, a belief that preparation would conquer the ice. Scott, meanwhile, sailed south on the Terra Nova, his expedition a sprawling endeavor backed by British pride and scientific ambition. Unlike Amundsen, Scott hedged his bets on a mix of transport, motor sledges, ponies, and dogs, but the sledges broke down, and the ponies, unsuited to the cold, faltered early. Scott's team was larger, their mission broader. To reach the pole, yes, but also to collect scientific data, to map the unknown. His base at Cape Evans buzzed with activity, from geological studies to meteorological observations. Yet beneath this bustle lay a tension. Scott's faith in British grit sometimes outstripped his planning. His men, though brave, were less experienced on skis, and their supplies were stretched thin. The Antarctic winter of 1911 tested them, as blizzards battered their huts and doubts crept in. The race began in earnest as the polar summer approached. Amundsen's team struck out on October 19, 1911, their dogs pulling sledges across the Ross ice shelf with a rhythm born of instinct. The Norwegians moved like a well-oiled machine, covering miles each day, their path guided by the Axel Heiberg Glacier, a treacherous but direct route through the Transantarctic mountains. The cold was brutal, the wind a constant foe, yet Amundsen's men pressed on, their breath freezing in the air, their dogs bounding through snowdrifts. By December 14, 1911, they reached the South Pole, a flat, featureless expanse of ice under a pale sky. Amundsen planted the Norwegian flag, his face lined with frost and relief. They had done it in just 55 days, a triumph of planning and endurance. Scott's journey was slower, more grueling. His team left Cape Evans on November 1, 1911, hauling sledges by hand after the ponies succumbed to the cold. The Beardmore Glacier, a jagged maze of ice and crevasses, tested their strength and resolve. Men fell ill, their bodies weakened by scurvy and exhaustion. Yet Scott drove them forward, his belief in their mission unwavering. On January 17, 1912, they reached the pole, only to find Amundsen's flag, a black mark against the snow, proof they had been beaten by 33 days. Scott's journal captures the moment. Great God! This is an awful place and terrible enough for us to have labored to it without the reward of priority. The return journey was a descent into despair. Blizzards trapped them, food ran low, and one by one, Scott's men perished. Evans, Oates, Wilson, Bowers, and finally Scott himself, just 11 miles from a supply depot. Their bodies, found months later, lay frozen in a tent, their story a testament to courage and heartbreak. As you listen, picture the pole, a place of no landmarks, only ice and sky, where two men's dreams collided. Amundsen's victory was swift, clinical. Scott's defeat was noble, tragic. Antarctica cared for neither. It simply endured, its vastness swallowing their triumphs and sorrows alike. The race to the pole wasn't just a contest between men. It was a clash with a continent that bowed to no one. What would drive a man to return to such a place, to face its wrath again? One name, already forged in the ice, would rise to answer that call: Shackleton, whose next journey would redefine survival itself. The Antarctic night stretches long and dark, a canvas of stars above a sea choked with ice. It's 1914, and the forbidden continent looms larger than ever in the hearts of those who dare to dream of its conquest. Ernest Shackleton, a man whose name is already woven into Antarctica's lore, set sail with a new ambition, not to reach the South Pole, but to cross the continent itself from sea to sea. His ship, the Endurance, carries a crew of men bound by courage and the promise of a journey that will test the limits of human survival. As you drift into the quiet of this evening, let's follow Shackleton and his men into the icy grip of Antarctica, where a story of loss, resilience, and miracles unfolds against a backdrop of unyielding cold. Shackleton was no stranger to the Antarctic. His earlier treks, including the grueling Discovery expedition and his own near miss of the South Pole in 1909, had taught him the continent's cruelty. Yet they also fueled his obsession. The Imperial Transantarctic Expedition was his boldest vision yet. To traverse Antarctica from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea, a journey of over 1,800 miles across uncharted ice. The Endurance, a sturdy Norwegian-built ship, was his chariot, manned by a crew of 27, sailors, scientists, and a carpenter, each chosen for their skill and spirit. A second ship, the Aurora, would support the journey from the Ross seaside, laying depots for the crossing. It was a plan as audacious as it was perilous, a challenge to Antarctica's dominion. The Endurance sailed from England in August 1914, just as the world tipped into the chaos of World War I by December. It reached the Weddell Sea, a treacherous expanse where pack ice drifted like a living labyrinth. Shackleton had hoped to land early in the Antarctic summer, but the ice had other plans. By January 1915, the Endurance was trapped, its hull ensnared in a vise of frozen floes. For months, the crew waited, hoping the ice would release them. They hunted seals, played football on the frozen sea, and kept spirits high with songs and stories. Shackleton, ever the leader, moved among them, his charisma a beacon in the growing dark. But the ice was relentless. In October 1915, the Endurance groaned under the pressure, its timbers splintering like bones. By November, it was gone, swallowed by the sea, leaving the men stranded on the drifting ice. What followed was a saga of survival that defies belief. Shackleton and his crew, with no ship and no hope of rescue, camped on the ice floes, their world a shifting, cracking platform adrift in the Weddell Sea. They salvaged what they could, 3 lifeboats, supplies, and a few sled dogs, and waited for the ice to carry them toward open water. The cold was a constant enemy, seeping through their clothes, frosting their breath. Food was scarce. They ate seal blubber and eventually their beloved dogs. Yet Shackleton's leadership held them together. He knew despair was as deadly as the ice. He shared their hardships, slept in the same tents, and kept hope alive with his unwavering resolve. The men called him the boss, and his presence was their anchor. By April 1916, after months adrift, the ice began to break, and the crew launched their lifeboats into the churning sea. Their target was Elephant Island, a barren speck 100 miles away. The 7-day journey was a nightmare. Waves towered over the open boats, soaking the men in freezing water. Hunger gnawed at them, and sleep was a distant memory. Yet they reached the island, their feet touching solid ground for the first time in 497 days. But Elephant Island was no salvation. Remote, uninhabited, and lashed by storms, it offered no hope of rescue. Shackleton knew their only chance lay in a desperate gamble. A voyage across the world's most treacherous ocean to reach South Georgia, 800 miles away, where a whaling station might offer aid. Shackleton chose 5 men, himself, Frank Worsley, the Endurance's captain, and 3 others, for the journey in the James Caird, a 22-foot lifeboat. They reinforced it with scraps, rigged a makeshift sail, and set out on April 24, 1916. The Southern Ocean was a maelstrom, its waves towering like mountains, its winds howling with fury. Worsley, a master navigator, steered by dead reckoning, catching glimpses of the sun through storm clouds. For 17 days they battled the sea, their bodies battered, their hands blistered, their boat encrusted with ice. Miraculously, they reached South Georgia's southern coast, but their ordeal wasn't over. The whaling stations were on the north side, and a mountain range stood in their way. Shackleton, Worsley, and Tom Crean trekked 36 hours across glaciers and peaks, with no map and little gear, to reach Stromness whaling station on May 20, 1916. The rescue of the men on Elephant Island followed, though it took 4 attempts and 3 months, as ice and weather thwarted Shackleton's efforts. By August 1916, every man was saved, not a single life was lost. The Endurance saga became a legend, not for reaching the pole or crossing the continent, but for what it revealed about human spirit. Shackleton's leadership, his refusal to surrender, turned disaster into triumph. Antarctica had crushed their ship, scattered their dreams, but it could not break them. As you listen, imagine the James Caird bobbing in a sea of chaos, Shackleton's eyes fixed on a horizon no one else could see. This was Antarctica's lesson. It spares no one, yet it honors those who endure. The heroic age was waning, but the continent's secrets were far from exhausted. What new frontiers would this frozen land reveal as science, not adventure, began to take the lead? The Antarctic wind whispers across a landscape of endless white, where the ice holds secrets older than empires. The heroic age, with its tales of daring and survival, has left its mark on Antarctica. But by the early 20th century, the forbidden continent was calling to a new kind of explorer, not adventurers seeking glory, but scientists hungry for knowledge. The ice, once a foe to be conquered, was becoming a vast archive, a frozen record of Earth's past and a key to its future. As you nestle into the calm of this night, let's journey into an era where Antarctica transformed from a battleground of human ambition into a frontier of discovery, where the silent continent began to speak through the language of science. The shift began quietly, as the echoes of Shackleton's endurance faded. The early 20th century was a time of global change. Industry was reshaping nations, and science was rewriting humanity's understanding of the world. Antarctica, with its untouched wilderness, offered a rare opportunity, a place where the Earth's history lay preserved in layers of ice and rock, untouched by the sprawl of civilization. The expeditions of the heroic age had brought back fragments of knowledge, geological samples, weather observations, sketches of strange creatures. But these were mere glimpses. Scientists now saw the continent as a laboratory, a place to probe questions about climate, geology, and life itself. The race to the South Pole had captured hearts. The race to understand Antarctica would capture minds. One of the first to answer this call was the Australian geologist Douglas Mawson, whose 1911–1914 Australasian Antarctic expedition turned its gaze from conquest to curiosity. Mawson's team set up camp at Cape Denison, a place lashed by winds so fierce they were later called the home of the blizzard. Unlike earlier explorers, Mawson's focus was scientific: to map the coastline, study the Earth's magnetic field, and collect samples of rocks and fossils. His men braved brutal conditions, sledging across ice fields to gather data that would reshape maps and theories. Mawson himself survived a harrowing solo trek after his companions perished, dragging himself back to camp through snow and starvation. His story was one of endurance, but his legacy was knowledge, data that began to peel back the layers of Antarctica's geological past. The continent's ice itself became a focal point. Scientists realized that its glaciers, some miles thick, were not just frozen water but time capsules. Each layer of snow, compressed over centuries, held clues to ancient climates, trapped air bubbles, dust particles, even traces of volcanic eruptions. By the 1920s and 1930s, expeditions began to focus on these icy archives. The British Graham Land Expedition of 1934–1937, for instance, mapped parts of the Antarctic Peninsula and studied its weather patterns, laying the groundwork for modern meteorology. Meanwhile, American explorer Richard Byard pushed the boundaries of technology, using airplanes to survey the continent from above. His 1928–1930 expedition established a base called Little America on the Ross Ice Shelf, where scientists drilled into the ice and studied the aurora australis, the southern lights that danced in the polar sky. Byard's expeditions were a turning point, blending adventure with science in a way that captured the world's imagination. His flights over Antarctica revealed a landscape of staggering scale: mountain ranges buried under ice, vast plateaus stretching to the horizon. His team's radios crackled with reports of discoveries, from new glaciers to signs of ancient life preserved in rock. But the work was grueling. Men lived in canvas tents or wooden huts, their breath freezing in the air, their instruments often failing in the cold. Yet the data they collected, on temperature, magnetism, and the movement of glaciers, began to paint a picture of a continent that was not static but alive, its ice shifting and groaning with the weight of millennia. This scientific awakening wasn't just about discovery. It was about cooperation. Antarctica's vastness demanded resources and expertise beyond any single nation. By the 1930s, countries like Norway, Australia, and Japan were sending their own teams, each contributing pieces to the puzzle. The Norwegians mapped the drowning Maud Land, the Australians studied the marine life of the Southern Ocean, and the Japanese began early research into the continent's unique atmospheric conditions. These efforts were scattered, often driven by national pride, but they hinted at a future where Antarctica could unite rather than divide. The continent, once a stage for rivalry, was becoming a shared frontier, its mysteries too vast for any one flag to claim. As you listen, imagine standing beside a scientist at a drilling site, the whine of the drill cutting through the silence of the ice. The core they pull up is a cylinder of frozen history, each layer a story of a world long gone, summers that warmed ancient seas, winters that buried forests. Antarctica was no longer just a place to survive. It was a place to understand. The men who worked here, bundled in furs or early parkas, were pioneers in a new kind of exploration, one that sought not to conquer the ice but to listen to it. Their discoveries would lay the foundation for a global effort, one that would soon bring the world together in a way no one could have foreseen. What would happen when nations set aside their rivalries to unlock the secrets of this frozen realm? The Antarctic night wraps the world in a hush, its stars sharp against a sky untouched by city lights. It's 1957, and the forbidden continent, once the realm of lone explorers and their desperate struggles, is stirring with a new purpose. The ice, vast and silent, is no longer just a challenge to be conquered. It's a canvas for human curiosity, a place where nations are beginning to work together to unravel the mysteries of the Earth. The International Geophysical Year, IG, a global scientific endeavor spanning 1957 to 1958, marks a turning point in Antarctica's story. As you sink into the calm of this evening, let's journey into this moment of unity, when the world turned its gaze southward, not for glory, but for knowledge that would reshape our understanding of the planet. The IGY was born in an era of tension. The Cold War cast a shadow over the globe, with nations locked in rivalries that threatened to fracture the world. Yet amidst this division, scientists proposed something radical: a year of coordinated research, where countries would set aside politics to study the Earth as one. Antarctica, with its untouched landscapes and ancient ice, was a natural focus. Its isolation made it a perfect laboratory for studying everything from the atmosphere to the Earth's magnetic field. The IGY wasn't just a scientific project. It was a bold statement that some challenges were too great for any one nation to tackle alone. 12 countries, including the United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, and Australia, committed to establishing research stations across the continent, their flags planted not in conquest, but in collaboration. The scale of the effort was staggering. Over 40 research stations sprang up across Antarctica, from the windswept coast of McMurdo Sound to the high, desolate plateau of the South Pole. The United States established Amundsen Scott Station, named for the rivals who raced to the pole decades earlier. Perched at 9,300 feet, it was a marvel of engineering, its buildings buried under snowdrifts to withstand the cold. The Soviet Union built Vostok Station in the continent's icy heart, where temperatures plunged below degrees F, the coldest ever recorded on Earth. Scientists lived in prefabricated huts, their breath clouding in the frigid air, their instruments humming with data. They drilled ice cores, launched weather balloons, and tracked cosmic rays, each experiment a piece of a larger puzzle. The discoveries of the IGY were profound. Ice cores, pulled from depths that reached back thousands of years, revealed the Earth's climate history, cycles of warmth and cold, locked in layers of frozen snow. These cores weren't just records, they were warnings, showing how the planet's atmosphere had shifted long before humans walked its surface. Scientists also mapped the continent's hidden topography, using seismic waves to peer beneath the ice. They found mountains and valleys buried under miles of frozen weight, a landscape as dramatic as any on Earth. The aurora australis, shimmering in the polar sky, was studied with new precision, revealing the interplay of solar winds and the Earth's magnetic field. Antarctica, once a blank space on the map, was becoming a key to understanding the planet's past and present. But the IGY was more than a scientific triumph, it was a human one. In a world divided by ideology, scientists from opposing nations worked side by side. American and Soviet researchers shared data, their rivalry tempered by a shared awe of the continent's scale. At Vostok, Soviet scientists endured months of isolation, their only link to the world a crackling radio. At McMurdo, Americans and New Zealanders collaborated on geological surveys, their sledges cutting paths through snow that had fallen centuries before. These men, and they were mostly men, in those days, lived in conditions that tested their limits. Blizzards could trap them for weeks, and the endless polar night weighed on their minds. Yet their letters and journals speak of a strange camaraderie, a sense that they were part of something larger than themselves. The IGY also marked a shift in how the world saw Antarctica. It was no longer just a place of adventure. It was a global commons, a space where humanity could come together. The success of the IGY laid the groundwork for something even greater, a treaty that would define the continent's future. Scientists returned with not just data but a vision, a continent free from war, dedicated to peace and discovery. The ice, once a barrier, was now a bridge, connecting nations in a way few could have imagined. As they packed their equipment and left their stations, they carried with them a new understanding of Antarctica, not as a forbidden land, but as a shared heritage, a place that belonged to all. As you listen, picture a scientist at Vostok, bundled in furs, stepping outside to watch the aurora dance across the sky. The cold bites at his face, but he stands in awe, knowing he's glimpsing forces that shape the universe. The IGY was a moment when Antarctica spoke, its ice and air revealing truths about the Earth that no one could have guessed. But this awakening was just the beginning. The world had come together to study the continent. Could it now unite to protect it? The answer lay in a pact that would change Antarctica's destiny forever, a promise written not in conquest, but in hope. The Antarctic twilight casts a pale glow across a world of ice, where the horizon blurs into a dreamlike expanse of white. It's 1959, and the forbidden continent, once a stage for solitary heroes and fleeting scientific endeavors, is about to take on a new role, one that transcends borders and ambitions. The International Geophysical Year has shown what humanity can achieve when it works together. And now, in a world fractured by Cold War tensions, Antarctica stands as a beacon of possibility. The Antarctic Treaty, a document born of hope and pragmatism, is about to declare this frozen realm a place of peace and science. As you settle into the quiet of this night, let's step into this pivotal moment, when nations chose to protect a continent that belongs to no one and to all. The seeds of the treaty were sown during the International Geophysical Year of 1957-1958, when scientists from rival nations worked side by side in Antarctica's icy wilderness. Their discoveries, ice cores revealing ancient climates, maps of hidden mountains, data on the Earth's magnetic field, proved the continent's value as a global laboratory. But the IGY also revealed something deeper. Antarctica was too vast, too vital, to be claimed by any single nation. The United States and the Soviet Union, locked in a global struggle, both saw the continent's strategic potential. Its ice-covered plateaus could host military bases, its waters could conceal submarines, and its untapped resources, rumors of coal, oil, and minerals, tempted imperial ambitions. Yet the scientists who worked there saw a different future, one where the ice could unite rather than divide. The push for a treaty began quietly in the corridors of diplomacy. The United States, under President Dwight Eisenhower, proposed a conference to ensure Antarctica remained free from conflict. 12 nations, the same ones that had led the IGY's Antarctic efforts, gathered in Washington, D.C. in 1959. They were an unlikely group. The United States and the Soviet Union, bitter rivals, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand with colonial ties to the region, Argentina and Chile asserting overlapping claims, Norway, France, Japan, South Africa, and Belgium, each with their own histories in the South. The negotiations were delicate, fraught with suspicion, But the memory of the IGY's success loomed large. Antarctica, they agreed, was different. It was a place where the rules of the world could be rewritten. On December 1, 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. Its words were simple but profound. Antarctica would be used for peaceful purposes only. No military bases, no weapons testing, no claims of sovereignty would disturb its silence. The treaty froze existing territorial claims. 7 nations had staked parts of the continent, their borders drawn in hopeful lines across maps, but it ensured no new claims could be made. Science was to be the continent's purpose, with research stations open to all, their data shared freely. Inspectors from any signatory nation could visit any station, ensuring transparency. It was a radical vision for a world accustomed to conquest, a pact that declared a continent off-limits to war. The treaty's impact was immediate and enduring. Research stations, once temporary outposts, became permanent hubs of discovery. McMurdo Station, Vostok, and others grew, their scientists drilling deeper into the ice, studying everything from cosmic rays to the ozone layer. The treaty fostered a spirit of collaboration that defied the Cold War's chill. Soviet and American researchers exchanged visits, their rivalry softened by the shared challenge of surviving Antarctica's extremes. The continent's isolation, once a barrier, became its strength, a place where the world's divisions seemed distant, irrelevant against the vastness of the ice. But the treaty was more than a diplomatic triumph. It was a testament to what humanity could achieve when it looked beyond itself. Antarctica, with its towering glaciers and endless winters, had no use for borders or flags. It demanded cooperation, humbling even the most powerful nations. The treaty's principles extended beyond science. Fishing in the Southern Ocean was regulated to protect its ecosystems, and environmental protections began to take shape. The continent became a symbol of what was possible when humanity chose unity over conflict. A frozen sanctuary where the Earth's pulse could be studied without the noise of war. The men and women who lived in Antarctica's stations during these early years were pioneers in their own right. They endured months of darkness, their world lit by lanterns and the faint glow of the aurora australis. Their journals speak of small moments, sharing tea with a scientist from another nation, marveling at a meteor streaking across the sky, or listening to the ice creak beneath their feet. These were not just scientists, but stewards, guarding a continent that belonged to no one yet spoke to everyone. Their work laid the foundation for discoveries that would reshape our understanding of the planet, from climate change to the origins of life. As you listen, imagine standing outside a research station, the cold biting at your fingertips, the sky alive with the shimmer of the southern lights. The treaty has made this place a haven, a rare corner of the world where peace reigns. But Antarctica is not a passive witness. It holds secrets that demand to be explored, from the creatures that thrive in its icy waters to the ancient stories locked in its depths. The treaty opened the door to this new era. But what would it reveal about the life that clings to this frozen world? And how would it change the way we see our planet? The Antarctic wind hums a low, mournful tune, sweeping across a landscape where ice stretches to the horizon, unbroken, except for the occasional shadow of a creature moving in the distance. This is a place where life seems impossible, where the cold bites deeper than any winter known, and yet, against all odds, life persists. Antarctica, the forbidden continent, is not a barren void, but a stage for some of the Earth's most resilient inhabitants, creatures that have carved out an existence in a world of ice and darkness. As you nestle into the quiet of this night, let's wander into this frozen menagerie, where penguins waddle with purpose, seals glide through icy waters, and microscopic life hums in the shadows, each a testament to the tenacity of survival. In a land where temperatures can plummet to -80°F and the sun vanishes for months, life must be extraordinary to endure. Antarctica's most iconic residents, the penguins, are perhaps the continent's greatest ambassadors. The emperor penguin, towering nearly 4 feet tall, is a marvel of adaptation. These birds gather in vast colonies on the sea ice, their black and white feathers a stark contrast against the snow. During the polar winter, when darkness cloaks the continent, emperors huddle together in groups of thousands, sharing warmth to survive the brutal cold. Males balance eggs on their feet, tucking them beneath a fold of skin to shield them from the wind, while females venture to the sea to feed. It's a dance of endurance, a ritual honed over millennia, where each penguin plays a part in the survival of the whole. Their calls, haunting and melodic, echo across the ice, a chorus that feels like the heartbeat of the continent. But penguins are only part of the story. The Weddell seal, with its sleek body and soulful eyes, thrives in Antarctica's coastal waters. These creatures can dive to depths of 2,000 feet, holding their breath for over an hour as they hunt for fish and squid beneath the ice. Their ability to navigate the dark, frigid depths is a marvel. Using their whiskers to sense prey, they move with a grace that belies the harshness of their world. On the ice, they haul out to rest, their bodies leaving trails in the snow like brushstrokes on a canvas. Other seals, like the craybaiter and leopard seal, add to the tapestry, each adapted to a specific niche. The leopard seal, a fierce predator, patrols the waters with a quiet menace, its jaws capable of snapping up penguins or even other seals. Beneath the ice, the Southern Ocean teems with life invisible to the naked eye. Krill, tiny shrimp-like creatures, form the backbone of Antarctica's ecosystem. These swarming masses, sometimes stretching for miles, are a feast for whales, seals, and penguins alike. Blue whales, the largest animals ever to live, migrate to these waters to gorge on krill, their massive bodies gliding through currents that circle the continent. Humpbacks and orcas join them, their songs reverberating through the deep, a reminder that even in this frozen world, life pulses with energy. The ocean's surface, often locked in ice, hides a vibrant world of algae and plankton, microscopic engines that fuel the food chain and produce much of the planet's oxygen. On land, life is sparser, but no less remarkable. Lichens and mosses cling to exposed rocks, their colors, green, orange, and gray, splashing against the monochrome landscape. These hardy plants thrive in the brief Antarctic summer, when the sun circles the sky without setting, coaxing life from the thinnest soils. Beneath the surface, in the ice itself, scientists have found microbes, bacteria and algae, that survive in conditions that would kill most organisms. These tiny survivors, some frozen for thousands of years, hint at life's resilience, raising questions about what else might endure in the universe's harshest corners. The discovery of these microbes in the 20th century, during the scientific awakening of the International Geophysical Year, added a new layer to Antarctica's story. A continent not just of ice, but of life that defies the odds. This ecosystem, fragile yet fierce, exists in a delicate balance. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, that great moat encircling the continent, isolates its waters, creating a unique environment where species have evolved in ways found nowhere else. The ice itself is a habitat, its cracks and crevasses home to creatures that depend on its stability. Scientists studying these ecosystems, often working from research stations like McMurdo or Palmer, have marveled at their complexity. They dive beneath the ice, their lights illuminating schools of fish that shimmer like silver, or trek across the snow to count penguin colonies, their data revealing the health of a system that sustains life across the Southern Ocean. As you listen, imagine standing on the edge of a frozen sea, watching a line of penguins march toward the water, their silhouettes sharp against the glow of the ice. The air is crisp, the silence broken only by their calls and the distant crack of a glacier. This is a world where life doesn't just survive, it thrives, in ways that challenge our understanding of what's possible. But this delicate balance, forged over millions of years, faces new pressures. The secrets of Antarctica's ice, once thought eternal, are beginning to reveal truths about a changing planet. What mysteries lie hidden beneath the frozen surface, and how might they reshape our understanding of the Earth's past and future? The Antarctic ice glimmers under a sky of endless twilight, its surface a mirror for the stars, its depths a vault of mysteries locked away for millennia. Beneath the frozen expanse of the forbidden continent lies a hidden world, rivers that flow without sunlight, lakes sealed from the air, and echoes of a planet's ancient past. As science turned its gaze to Antarctica in the 20th century, Researchers began to probe these secrets, peeling back layers of ice to reveal truths about Earth's history and whispers of life that defy imagination. As you drift into the quiet of this night, let's descend into the heart of the continent, where the ice guards stories older than humanity itself, waiting for those patient enough to listen. The ice sheets of Antarctica, some as thick as 3 miles, are more than frozen water. They are archives, each layer a page in the Earth's long tale. Scientists, working in the wake of the International Geophysical Year, realized that these glaciers held records of climate, atmosphere, and even cosmic events stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. By drilling deep into the ice, they extracted cores, long cylinders of frozen time, striped with the seasons of ages past. At stations like Vostok and Domsee, researchers pulled up cores that reached back 800,000 years, each layer preserving air bubbles, dust, and isotopes that told of ancient summers, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in the planet's breath. These cores revealed cycles of warming and cooling, showing an Earth that has always been in flux, its climate a delicate dance of forces far beyond human control. But the ice hides more than climate records. In the 1970s, Soviet scientists at Vostok Station made a startling discovery. A vast lake, sealed beneath 2 miles of ice, its waters untouched for millions of years. Lake Vostok, named for the station above it, spans an area larger than Lake Ontario, its surface rippling in darkness, isolated from the world above. The discovery sent ripples through the scientific community. Could life exist in such a place, cut off from sunlight and air? Early samples, carefully drilled to avoid contamination, hinted at microbial life, bacteria that thrived in conditions once thought impossible. These findings sparked questions not just about Earth, but about the cosmos. If life could endure in Antarctica's subglacial lakes, could it exist in the frozen oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa or beneath the surface of Mars? Lake Vostok was only the beginning. By the 21st century, scientists had identified hundreds of subglacial lakes across Antarctica, a network of hidden waters flowing beneath the ice. These lakes, connected by rivers that snake through the continent's underbelly, are kept liquid by the Earth's geothermal heat and the pressure of the ice above. Sonar and radar mapping revealed their extent, painting a picture of a continent alive beneath its frozen shell. Some lakes, like Lake Whillans, teem with microbial ecosystems, their waters rich with tiny organisms that feed on minerals leached from ancient rocks. These discoveries rewrote our understanding of life's limits, suggesting that even in the darkest, coldest corners of the planet, something stirs. The ice also guards relics of Antarctica's distant past. In the Transantarctic Mountains, scientists found fossils of plants and animals from a time when the continent was green, a reminder of its Gondwana days, when ferns swayed under a warmer sun. These rocks, exposed by the slow grind of glaciers, hold leaves, seeds, and even dinosaur bones, fragments of a world lost to time. In the dry valleys, a rare ice-free region, researchers uncovered soils that haven't seen rain in millions of years, their chemistry a snapshot of an Earth before the ice took hold. These findings, painstakingly gathered by teams braving blizzards and isolation, offered clues to how life adapted as Antarctica drifted into its frozen exile. The secrets beneath the ice aren't just scientific, they're emotional, almost spiritual. Scientists who work in Antarctica describe a sense of awe, a feeling of touching something eternal. At drilling sites, where machines hum through the polar night, the ice cores emerge like relics from a forgotten age, their surfaces sparkling under headlamps. Each core is a journey backward, a connection to a planet that existed before cities, before empires, before humans. The researchers, bundled in parkas, their faces stung by cold, speak of moments when the weight of discovery feels overwhelming. A reminder that Antarctica is not just a place, but a witness to the Earth's story. Yet these discoveries come with a challenge. Drilling into subglacial lakes risks contaminating pristine environments, and the ice itself is changing. As global temperatures rise, Antarctica's glaciers are thinning, their secrets at risk of being lost. The data from ice cores, once thought to be a fixed record, now carries an urgent message. The Earth is warming, and the continent that has preserved its past may hold the key to its future. Scientists, working from stations like McMurdo or Concordia, are racing to understand these changes. Their work a bridge between the ancient and the modern. As you listen, imagine holding an ice core in your hands, its surface cold and smooth, its depths glowing with the light of 1,000,000 years. This is Antarctica's gift, a window into a world we can barely fathom, a reminder of how small we are against the sweep of time. But as the ice speaks, it also warns. The continent, once a symbol of permanence, is facing pressures no one could have foreseen. What challenges lie ahead for this frozen sanctuary, and how will humanity respond to the call of its changing ice? The Antarctic horizon shimmers with a pale, otherworldly light, where ice meets sky in a dance of cold and silence. This forbidden continent, once a distant dream for explorers and a quiet laboratory for scientists, now faces the weight of a changing world. The 21st century has brought humanity closer to Antarctica than ever before, not just through science, but through the creeping presence of modern life. Climate change, tourism, and the delicate balance of preserving a pristine wilderness have cast new shadows across the ice. As you settle into the stillness of this night, let's walk through the challenges facing Antarctica today, where the echoes of human ambition meet a landscape that has endured for millennia, yet now stands at a crossroads. Antarctica's isolation, once its greatest shield, is no longer absolute. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 declared the continent a place of peace and science, but the world beyond its shores has grown warmer, busier, and more connected. Climate change, a force born far from the polar south, is reshaping the continent in ways that would have been unthinkable a century ago. The great ice sheets, which hold 60% of the Earth's freshwater, are thinning at an alarming rate. In West Antarctica, the Pine Island and Thwaites glaciers, nicknamed the Doomsday Glaciers, are melting faster than scientists predicted, their ice crumbling into the sea. Satellite imagery shows cracks spreading like veins, and measurements from research stations reveal a loss of billions of tons of ice each year. This isn't just a local change, it's a global one. If these glaciers collapse entirely, sea levels could rise by meters, redrawing coastlines and flooding cities. The warming isn't just melting ice, it's disrupting the delicate ecosystems that call Antarctica home. The krill that swarm the Southern Ocean, the lifeblood of penguins, seals, and whales, are declining as waters warm and sea ice shrinks. Penguins, those stalwart survivors, are struggling to adapt. Adelie penguin colonies on the Antarctic peninsula have dwindled, their chicks starving as parents must travel farther to find food. Scientists at stations like Palmer and Rothera track these changes, their data painting a stark picture. The balance that sustained life for millions of years is tilting. The Southern Ocean, once a cold fortress, is absorbing heat from a warming planet, its currents shifting in ways that ripple across the globe, altering weather patterns as far away as Europe and Asia. Tourism, too, has left its mark. Once, only explorers and scientists ventured to Antarctica's shores. Now, cruise ships carrying thousands of visitors each year navigate its waters, their passengers eager to glimpse penguins, icebergs, and the raw beauty of the continent. In the 2022-2023 season, over 100,000 tourists visited, a number unimaginable in Shackleton's time. These visitors bring awe, but also risk. Ships can leak fuel, disturb wildlife, or introduce invasive species, tiny seeds or microbes carried on boots that could disrupt fragile ecosystems. The Antarctic Treaty and its environmental protocols set strict guidelines. No litter, no approaching wildlife too closely, no stepping beyond designated paths. Yet enforcement is challenging in a land with no government, where oversight depends on the goodwill of nations and operators. Science itself, the heart of Antarctica's modern identity, walks a fine line. Research stations, now over 70 across the continent, are hubs of discovery, but they rely on fuel, supplies, and infrastructure that leave a footprint. Stations like McMurdo, with its sprawling complex of buildings, require constant resupply by ship and plane, burning carbon in a place meant to be a sanctuary. Scientists are acutely aware of this irony. Many stations now use renewable energy. Solar panels and wind turbines hum at places like Australia's Casey Station. But the challenge of balancing discovery with preservation remains. Drilling into subglacial lakes, like Vostok or Whillans, risks contaminating pristine waters, and even the act of studying wildlife can disturb it. Researchers tread carefully, their work guided by a deep respect for the continent's fragility. The Antarctic Treaty remains the cornerstone of these efforts, a framework that binds nations to protect the continent. Its protocols, expanded since 1959, govern everything from waste disposal to fishing quotas in the Southern Ocean. The Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, established in 1982, regulates krill and fish harvests to prevent overexploitation. Yet the treaty faces new pressures. Some nations eye Antarctica's resources, oil, gas, and minerals rumored to lie beneath the ice, though mining is banned until at least 2048. Geopolitical tensions simmer as countries like China and Russia expand their presence with new stations, raising questions about their long-term intentions. The treaty's strength lies in its consensus, but as global demands grow, maintaining that unity is no small feat. For those who live and work in Antarctica, the modern challenges are deeply personal. Scientists and support staff spend months in isolation, their lives shaped by the continent's rhythms. They describe moments of profound connection, watching a Weddell seal surface through a hole in the ice, or seeing the aurora australis paint the sky with colors that defy description. But they also speak of urgency, of watching glaciers calve into the sea, of counting fewer penguins each year. Their work, from ice core analysis to marine biology, is a race against time, a bid to understand a continent that is changing before their eyes. As you listen, imagine standing on an Antarctic shore, the crunch of snow underfoot, the distant bark of a seal echoing across the water. This is a place of timeless beauty, yet it bears the scars of a world in flux. Antarctica has always been a mirror, reflecting humanity's dreams and fears, first as a myth, then as a frontier, now as a warning. The ice is speaking, louder than ever, but will we listen? The continent's future hangs in the balance, its story intertwined with our own. What role will Antarctica play in a world that imagines it as both a wilderness and a symbol of what we stand to lose? The Antarctic night unfurls like a velvet curtain, its stars a silent chorus above a land where ice whispers tales of eternity. This forbidden continent, with its vast silences and shimmering glaciers, has always been more than a place. It's a canvas for human dreams, a mirror for our deepest fears and wildest hopes. From the ancient myths of Terra Australis to the heroic sagas of explorers, Antarctica has captured the imagination like no other land, its icy heart a symbol of the unknown, the untamed, the sublime. As you drift into the calm of this night, let's wander through the stories, books, and films that have woven Antarctica into the fabric of human culture, a place where reality and fantasy blur into something timeless. Long before its shores were sighted, Antarctica lived in the minds of scholars and dreamers. The ancient Greeks imagined a southern land to balance the world, a terra australis of golden fields and endless summers. Their maps, drawn by candlelight, were acts of faith, sketching a continent no one had seen but everyone believed must exist. These early visions were not just geography, they were philosophy, a yearning for order in a chaotic world. As centuries passed, the myth evolved. Renaissance explorers like Magellan and Drake sailed toward the edges of this dream, their tales of monstrous seas and icy mists fueling stories of a land that guarded its secrets fiercely. Antarctica, even before it was known, was a place of mystery, a blank page where humanity could write its desires. By the 19th century, as explorers like Bellingshausen and Bransfield glimpsed its shores, Antarctica began to take shape in literature. Jules Verne, the master of adventure, set his 1897 novel An Antarctic Mystery in a South still shrouded in enigma, its plot weaving through icy seas and lost ships. The continent was a backdrop for the fantastic, a place where the impossible seemed plausible. Edgar Allan Poe, in his eerie The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, painted Antarctica as a realm of terror and wonder, its waters hiding secrets that defied reason. These stories, written before the heroic age, captured the continent's allure. A place so remote it could hold anything, from hidden civilizations to gateways to other worlds. The real-life dramas of Shackleton, Scott, and Amundsen only deepened Antarctica's hold on the imagination. Their stories, told in journals and newspaper headlines, became modern epics. Shackleton's survival in the Endurance saga was a tale of human spirit triumphing over impossible odds, retold in books like Alfred Lansing's 1959 Endurance. Shackleton's incredible voyage, which gripped readers with its vivid prose. Scott's tragic race to the South Pole, with its haunting final journal entries, inspired poems, plays, and novels that cast him as a flawed but noble hero. These accounts weren't just history, they were mythology, transforming Antarctica into a stage where humanity tested its limits against a relentless foe. The 20th century brought Antarctica to new mediums. Films like Scott of the Antarctic, 1948, dramatized the doomed polar race, its black-and-white frames capturing the bleak beauty of the ice. Documentaries, like those produced during the International Geophysical Year, showed the world a continent of scientific wonder, its glaciers and penguins flickering on early television screens. Science fiction embraced Antarctica as a setting for the strange and uncanny. Films like The Thing 1982 used its isolation to craft horror, imagining alien creatures buried in the ice. Even in children's stories, like Chris Van Allsburg's The Polar Express, the Polar South became a metaphor for the magical, a place where belief could overcome the ordinary. Antarctica's visual art is equally evocative. Painters like Edward Wilson, who died with Scott, left behind watercolors of glowing icebergs and crimson skies, their delicate hues capturing the continent's ethereal beauty. Modern artists, inspired by satellite imagery and scientific discoveries, depict subglacial lakes and melting glaciers, their work a blend of awe and warning. Photographers, braving the cold alongside scientists, have brought Antarctica into homes worldwide, their images of towering ice cliffs and waddling penguins stirring a sense of wonder. These visuals, whether on canvas or screen, make the continent feel both distant and intimate, a place that exists in the mind as much as on the map. In literature, Antarctica remains a symbol of the sublime. Writers like Kim Stanley Robinson, in his 1997 novel Antarctica, explored the continent as a battleground for science, politics, and human survival. Its ice a mirror for our own fragility. Poets, too, have found inspiration in its vastness. Derek Mann's Antarctica speaks of a land where the living come to die. Its starkness a meditation on mortality. The continent's silence, its indifference, makes it a perfect canvas for existential questions, a place where humanity confronts its smallness against the infinite. As you listen, imagine flipping through an old book, its pages filled with sketches of icebergs and tales of lost explorers, or watching a film where the Antarctic wind howls through a darkened theater. This is a place that lives as much in our stories as in its ice, a land that challenges us to dream, to fear, to wonder. But as the world changes, so does Antarctica's story. The ice is melting, the future uncertain, and the continent's role in our imagination is shifting. What lies ahead for this frozen dreamscape, and how will it shape the hopes and fears of generations to come? The Antarctic sky burns with the soft glow of twilight, its ice reflecting a world both ancient and fragile. This forbidden continent, a land of myths, heroes, and scientific wonders, stands at the edge of an uncertain future. Once a distant dream, Antarctica is now a mirror for humanity's hopes and fears, a place where the past whispers through frozen layers and the present warns of a warming world. As you sink into the quiet of this night, let's gaze forward, into the unfolding story of Antarctica, where the stakes are no longer just exploration or discovery, but the survival of a wilderness that holds the key to our planet's fate. The ice, which has defined Antarctica for millions of years, is changing. The great sheets that cover 98% of the continent, locking away the Earth's history in their depths, are no longer eternal. Climate change, driven by human activity thousands of miles away, is carving new paths through the frozen landscape. In West Antarctica, glaciers like Thwaites and Pine Island are retreating at a pace that alarms scientists, their meltwater feeding rising seas. Studies from research stations like Amundsen, Scott, and Rothera show that the continent lost over 2,700 billion tons of ice between 1992 and 2017, a trend accelerating with each passing year. If these glaciers collapse entirely, global sea levels could rise by several meters, submerging coastal cities and displacing millions. Antarctica, once a symbol of permanence, is now a sentinel of change, its melting ice a warning that echoes across the globe. This warming threatens more than just the ice. The ecosystems that cling to Antarctica's edges, penguins, seals, krill, are faltering. Adelie penguin colonies, once thriving, are shrinking as sea ice, their breeding ground dwindles. Krill, the cornerstone of the Southern Ocean's food web, face declining numbers as warmer waters disrupt their life cycle. Scientists at stations like Palmer track these shifts, their data revealing a chain reaction that ripples outward, affecting whales, seabirds, and even global fisheries. The Southern Ocean, which absorbs vast amounts of carbon dioxide, is losing its capacity to buffer the planet's climate, its currents shifting in ways that could alter weather patterns from South America to Australia. Antarctica's fate is not just its own, it's a thread in the fabric of the Earth's systems, and pulling it risks unraveling the whole. Yet the future holds more than peril. Antarctica remains a beacon of scientific discovery, its ice and waters offering clues to humanity's past and potential solutions for its future. Ice cores, drilled from depths that reach back 800,000 years, continue to reveal the Earth's climate history, helping scientists model what lies ahead. Subglacial lakes like Vostok and Whillans, hidden beneath miles of ice, are laboratories for studying life in extreme conditions, offering insights into the possibility of life on Mars or Europa. New technologies, drones, satellites, autonomous underwater vehicles, are expanding our reach, mapping uncharted regions and monitoring changes in real time. At stations like Concordia, researchers study human adaptation to isolation, their findings shaping plans for space exploration. Antarctica is not just a place to understand Earth, it's a proving ground for humanity's ambitions beyond it. The Antarctic Treaty, now over 6 decades old, remains the continent's guardian, but it faces new challenges. Its ban on mining, set to be reviewed in 2048, is under scrutiny as nations eye the continent's rumored resources, oil, gas, and minerals locked beneath the ice. China and Russia have expanded their presence, building new stations and raising questions about their long-term goals. The treaty's strength lies in its consensus, but as global demand for resources grows, maintaining that unity is no easy task. Meanwhile, tourism continues to surge, with over 100,000 visitors annually straining the continent's fragile ecosystems. Guidelines are strict: no litter, no disturbance of wildlife, but enforcing them across a vast, ungoverned land is a challenge. The treaty's vision of peace and science is a fragile one, tested by the pressures of a crowded world. Antarctica's future also lies in its people, scientists, logisticians, and stewards who live in its harsh embrace. They describe a place that changes you, where the silence of the ice and the dance of the aurora australis stir a sense of humility. At McMurdo or Halley, they work through polar nights, their breath frosting in the air, their data a lifeline to understanding a planet in flux. Their stories, shared over coffee in heated huts, speak of a love for this wilderness, a commitment to protect it. Yet they also face isolation, harsh conditions, and the knowledge that their work is a race against time. They are the custodians of Antarctica's future, their efforts a bridge between its past and what lies ahead. In the imagination, Antarctica remains a symbol of the sublime, a place where humanity confronts its limits and its potential. It inspires artists, writers, and filmmakers to grapple with questions of survival, beauty, and loss. But its story is no longer just one of wonder, it's one of responsibility. The continent's ice, its creatures, its silence, are a call to action, urging us to rethink our relationship with the Earth. Initiatives like the 2041 Foundation named for the treaty's review year, aim to preserve Antarctica as a wilderness, while global efforts to curb emissions could slow the melt. The choices we make now, about energy, conservation, cooperation, will shape whether Antarctica remains a sanctuary or becomes a casualty of our own making. As you listen, imagine standing on a glacier's edge, the ice creaking beneath your feet, the horizon stretching into a future unwritten. Antarctica is more than a continent, it's a question, asking what kind of world we want to leave behind. Its story, from ancient forests to melting glaciers, is our story, a tale of resilience and fragility. Will we heed its call, or will the forbidden continent, so long a keeper of secrets, become a memory lost to the rising seas? As the Antarctic night wraps the world in its quiet embrace, the stars above burn with a clarity that speaks of timeless things. We've journeyed together through the story of Antarctica, the forbidden continent, a land that has whispered to humanity for millennia, from the ancient dreams of Terra Australis to the heroic struggles of explorers who faced its icy heart. We've wandered through its lush, lost forests, felt the slow drift of continents, and stood in awe as men like Shackleton defied the odds to survive its wrath. We've listened to the ice itself, its layers telling tales of climates long past, and marveled at the creatures, penguins, seals, and microbes, that thrive where life seems impossible. Now, as we stand at the edge of its future, Antarctica is no longer just a story of the past. It's a mirror reflecting our choices, a call to safeguard a wilderness that belongs to us all. This continent, with its towering glaciers and silent plains, is more than a place. It's a testament to the Earth's resilience and fragility. Its ice holds the secrets of our planet's history, from ancient forests to cycles of warmth and cold that shaped the world we know. Its waters teem with life, from the krill that feed mighty whales to the microbes hidden in subglacial lakes, hinting at possibilities beyond our world. Yet this frozen sanctuary is changing. The glaciers are melting, the seas are warming, and the delicate balance that has sustained Antarctica's ecosystems for millions of years is faltering. The Antarctic Treaty, a beacon of peace and science, stands strong, but it faces pressures from a world hungry for resources and divided by ambition. The future of this continent, once thought eternal, now rests in our hands. Imagine for a moment standing on an Antarctic shore, the crunch of snow beneath your feet, the air sharp with cold. In the distance, a penguin waddles toward the sea, its silhouette framed by an iceberg glowing under the polar sun. This is a place that humbles us, that reminds us of our smallness against the sweep of time. But it also empowers us, urging us to act as stewards of a world we've only begun to understand. Antarctica's story is our story, a tale of curiosity, courage, and the consequences of our choices. It asks us to look beyond ourselves, to protect a place that has no borders, no owner, yet speaks to every heart that hears its call. So, as you drift toward sleep tonight, carry this thought with you. Antarctica is not just a distant land, it's a legacy, a gift from the Earth that we must preserve. I invite you to join me in this journey beyond this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? What does Antarctica mean to you? Your voice matters, and together, we can spark a conversation about protecting this incredible continent. If this story has moved you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more tales that blend history with the calm of bedtime storytelling. Your support keeps these stories alive, helping me bring the wonders of the past to light. For those who want to do more, consider learning about organizations like the 2041 Foundation, dedicated to preserving Antarctica's future, or supporting efforts to combat climate change in your own community. Every small action, reducing your carbon footprint, advocating for conservation, or simply sharing this story, helps ensure that this frozen wilderness endures for generations to come. Let's make a promise to Antarctica to keep its ice shining, its creatures thriving, and its silence unbroken. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of the forbidden continent. My name is Sherry, and it's been an honor to share this tale with you. Sleep well, dream deeply, and may the whispers of Antarctica linger in your heart.